I could take a break from this world. Running on a hamster wheel, but searching for something I can't feel. I just wanna be a lost girl and fly. Take a breath, feel my wings spread, levitate above the ground and make eye contact with clouds. Now I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free, finally. I always stay dreaming, never imagined I lose my spark. Living in this crazy time, putting back the pieces of my mind. I know how to run from the dark and fly. Take a breath, feel my wings spread, levitate into the clouds. I'm so high above the ground, I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free.
Race, conversations, and law enforcement. This is Moses' People Speak. Welcome to another episode of Moses People Speak. I'm your host, Terry Watson. I am so excited to be here today. We have a great guest. Of course, I'm talking about our guest, Nakia Jones. Before we get started, a couple of announcements, though. First, please stay tuned to the end for the viewing of God Loves Justice. It's a short clip. One of our members sent me some information, and I felt like I had to write a piece for the new year. Next announcement is if you are interested, on April 8th through the 10th, we have our symposium on conscious law enforcement and inclusive practices. And please look forward to that for registration information and much more. So, our guest of the evening, Nakia Jones. Nakia is an activist, ex-police officer, and a author of the book "The Truth, A Truth Divided." She actually appeared on a special edition a couple of weeks ago for the Capitol discussion. So this is actually her official show for herself. So we could be talking to Nakia in a few minutes. But before we get started, I want to show a really quick video of Nakia and sort of where her story sort of came to light after she posted a very heartfelt post on Facebook regarding the Alton Sterling shooting. So here's a reminder of that posting.
And God, please forgive me, and you can delete me if you're getting mad at me. If you are white and you working in a black community and you are racist, you need to be ashamed of yourself. You stood up there and took an oath. If this is not where you want to work at, then you need to take your behind somewhere else. I decided to work in the African American community because I'm African American and I wanted to make a difference. I could have worked in Parma. I could have worked in Lakewood. I could have worked in North Olmsted. I'm a double minority. They would have got 2 hits for me because I'm African American and I'm a female. I'm here because I wanted to make a difference. But how dare you stand next to me in the same uniform and murder somebody? How dare you? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. So why don't we just keep it real? If you're that officer that know good and well you got a God complex, you're afraid of people that don't look like you, you have no business in that uniform. Take it off.
Welcome, Nakia. How are you doing today? Oh, you're muted. Hold on. Why you? Hold on. Let me unmute you.
Are we there now? I'm doing wonderful. Now I can't hear you. Okay,
You
now
know, technology is one of those things that all day today has been driving me crazy. Well, welcome to Moses People Speak Again.
thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. And so I showed the video. It's about 1 minute long, but I know that video was actually 7 minutes long, and you talked about a lot in that 7 minutes. Um, so one of the things that I really want to dive into is really not just the video, but also what made you post that video, and what were some of the contents behind it. So if you could just for a few minutes, Nakia, tell us about the content of that video.
In that video, basically you saw pain, you saw hurt, you saw disappointment, you saw anger. Um, for me, I have a lot of respect for law enforcement because no matter what, now they would be considered a necessary evil. Back before, it was better for me. I never imagined that I would be on a force where I would actually witness racism right in my face. So for me, it was very personal, for many different reasons, because I also wear the uniform. So no matter what, when one of them do something out of line, it reflects on who I am. Just like we know if one Black person does something out of line, it reflects on who we are. So
Right.
I took it very, very personal, and having two Black sons that are amazing young men, but knowing that at any given time, all they have to do is be pulled over by the wrong cop. That's it. Sad thing as well is knowing that there could be Black officers around, and a lot of times they don't see nothing, don't say nothing.
Right.
So
Right.
it was scary for me, and then to feel the energy of the community, because when you really serve your community, you become part of your community. I could feel the frustration of my community. I could feel the frustration of people, just period, just watching how things were unfolding, how officers were getting away with just killing young Black men, unarmed Black men. And I couldn't understand it when we would go on calls sometimes and I wouldn't reach for my gun, but you'd have white officers with their hands on their guns that was much bigger than me, that had been probably more trained than me. And I couldn't understand it. And I honestly, I think seeing the fear in my son's eyes, I teach my children, you don't fear no man. The only person you fear is God. You always treat people the way you want to be treated. But to see the fear in his eyes when he woke me up to tell me to watch Alton Sterling's video for a mother, that shook me to my core. And it made me understand how other mothers and fathers that are not in law enforcement, how they must feel when their children come to them or when they see things on TV, or how they must feel.
Right.
So
Right.
that was the gist of me making, because of my son, is really why I
This. Yeah, I think sometimes kids lead us in a way that, I know for my children as well. Sometimes we as parents, we feel like there's nothing that we can do. And I think that that's sort of what I got from that video too. And again, I saw it when you posted it back in 2016, and I remember thinking to myself, "Wow, this is someone really speaking out on this issue." Um, so let's take a step back for a second, Nakia, because I want to talk about your book, the Truth Divided. I had a chance to go do it actually over the last week or so, and I was like, I was doing what I typically do, underlining stuff, highlighting things. And I love the way you sort of narrated your life. But one thing that stuck out to me was in your book. And again, I don't want you to give away everything because I want people to actually read it. But you are credited March 3rd, 1991, as the beginning. And I want you to sort of give folks who are watching what that beginning was and how did that beginning impact you.
that was the day that Rodney King was beaten. I'll never forget it. It was almost, I'm gonna be totally honest with you all, and some people may disagree with me. Watching that for me was almost as traumatizing as watching what happened at the Capitol. That's how bad it was to watch these officers that had so much more power over this man beat him. I mean, they treated him less than an animal. And to watch during this time as they are beating him, after they got him in handcuffs, now they beat him and beat him and beat him, how they hog-tied this man and left him on the side of the road for a long time while officers stood in a huddle to talk to one another. And I'm saying they're not giving them medical attention. What is going on? Being an officer now, I know that they were way out of line. I don't understand how they didn't get convicted, but it did something to my spirit. The reason why it did something to my spirit is because I never saw the police in that light. I always thought police officers was officer friendly. The officers that were in our community knew us by name. They were part of our community. So to see that, it shook something inside me. And I remember my grandmother telling me, if you want to change something, be the change you want to see. I never thought I would have been a law enforcement officer. I wanted to be an attorney. But when I saw that, I'm like, no, it's got to be something better. I've always wanted to protect and help people. So I decided, let me get in there and be something different. Let me show the community that we can serve them. Let me give the community somebody that looks like them, somebody that can relate to them. That was my main reason for becoming a police officer. So when I say I became an officer to help others, it was true because I grew up in the hood. I went through physical abuse. My mom was on drugs real bad. So I got to see it. So my perspective of people that are in low income communities and maybe the mother or father has a drug problem, I don't look down at them. What I look at them and say, my mother made it through. We made it through. So look, I can speak life into you. Even if you don't understand, even if you don't get it the first time, every time I see you, I'm going to speak life into you.
Right. And I think we hear that term community policing quite often these days. And I think sometimes we take that for granted that in a neighborhood in which police really knows that community, right? Really interacts with the community. Like you said, know them by name, know their situation, right? That makes a huge difference. So when you got into policing, what was that like? What was some of the first things you noticed?
Actually, I started out in East Cleveland, and I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I loved it. It's not the same now, but I loved it. When I tell you the white officers, the black officers, we were really a family. We were disgruntled sometimes, but we were really a family, and we held each other accountable. I had an amazing chief. Chief Guyton was amazing. If you did something wrong, he got on you. But if he saw a potential in you and knew that you would be a good officer, he also encouraged that. So the thing that I loved about East Cleveland was when I first got there, they immediately put me in community-oriented policing. And I didn't understand it until my sergeant told me, Sergeant Robinson, I'll never forget, she said, we need to know that you can handle yourself and that you can become a part of this community. You can mesh in this community. Because if you can't, you're not effective. Right. And maybe that's what we need to start doing for law enforcement officers. Maybe you should start them in community policing during their probation. Let them get in the community. Let them go and sit and talk to people. See if they can really intertwine in the community, because if they can't, they will never be effective in your community. And that's what they did. Even though I was from East Cleveland, still, I still had to show that I could be authoritative. I still had to show that I could handle myself, because these were people that I knew. And I think that was harder, honestly, because it was people I knew that I had to put in cuffs sometimes. Sometimes I had to get on them. I went to people's houses that I knew that ended up being hurt. So it was a different dynamic, but I loved it at first. I think I saw the change in law enforcement, honestly, in 2002.
How long have you been in the job since then?
I started in 1996.
Okay, so you were pretty seasoned by that time then.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thinking about I guess your experience as a police officer. One of the things that when I first talked to you, I couldn't but notice that there was a similarity between you and another one of my partners in crime, Carrier Horn. It was almost like I was talking to a younger version of Carrier, and I remember saying to myself, there's something odd here that these stories are so similar in a way of the treatment after the posting of the video and as well as the book.
Absolutely.
So if you could, I guess, Nakia, thinking about some of the video that you post, you talked about not just race, but you talked about gender. You talk about violence in the community. What were some of the things you were hoping that, I guess, the police community as well as your civilian community would take from that video posting?
I honestly was hoping that law enforcement officers would just examine themselves. Number one, we're human beings. We go through the same things everybody else. You have officers that are alcoholics. You have officers that have financial problems. You have officers that are abuse their wives. You have officers with emotional problems. And I was hoping that they would just take a step back for a minute and say, let me examine myself as a person, and then let me examine myself as a police officer. Am I really equipped for this job? You know what I'm saying? I felt like maybe I would inspire some of them that don't understand our community to not be afraid to tap some of them and say, hey, listen, I really don't know how to deal with this situation. Will you help me? I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't want to say the wrong thing. That's what I was hoping from law enforcement, that everybody, they would take a minute back. It wasn't to bash them. It was for you to take a reflection, take a look in the mirror, because even when I made the video, I had to look in the mirror and make sure that my integrity was in check. Then I of course I spent off, because I'm a Black woman. I work in the community. I understand. I'm not blind to see that we killing one another. I'm not foolish to see that. So how could I go and speak at my brothers and sisters in blue, but not address my brothers and sisters that wear the same color, complexion, skin that I have? It's just not a balance. And I thought pleading to them would say, listen, do you understand the reason why they have dehumanized us? Do you understand why police officers can gun us down and nobody has remorse? Even the community didn't have remorse. It's because of the way we act sometimes. They look at us as savages. And because of our behavior towards one another, that's the reason why a lot of these shootings are justifiable. Why wouldn't I be afraid of them? Shoot, they're killing each other. You see what I'm saying? So it was time to change. And I was hoping the same thing for us, that some of us mothers would sit down and talk to our sons and our daughters. And I was hoping that some young men would be empowered to say, you know what? I need to start looking at this man as my brother. I don't have to like you, but I'm not going to take your life. And I think I was praying that some sort of peace would come. But I think, Terry, I told you, 11/11/2020, I buried my nephew, my sister's only son. It's a shame that my nephew couldn't walk in a community where males look just like him and be shot and killed. It's almost like we don't have a place. I can't walk in an all-white neighborhood because they're gonna think I don't belong. And you're telling me I don't belong in my own neighborhood either, just because I may come from a different side of town. It doesn't make sense. So that's what I was trying to address and see. Look at all this foolishness. You're taking a life. Why would you take something you can't give back? And that's the same thing I would tell my brothers and sisters in blue. When we take a life, that's supposed to be our last resort. That's it. Because we know we can't give that back.
Right. You know, and I will say too, when I've been going around talking with police, I always talk about this concept of generational trauma, right? You know, it's how, you know, it's this thought of, as a police officer, do you contribute to that trauma or do you help heal? I think there's only two options. Either you contribute to it or you help heal it. You know, so, you know, the reason why I bring that up is because, you know, when I listened to your video, that's what I was feeling, that you were really trying to help the community heal. Again, after the Alton Sterling shooting, and there's a couple of shootings, there's a couple of deaths that come to mind. I always said, even till today, I haven't seen the George Floyd video because I know how it ends, and unfortunately, I know it won't be the last one. So I figured I don't need to traumatize myself anymore. I'm going to hopefully impact some change. But my question to you is, you know, as I'm speaking to more police officers, especially Black police officers, they're saying that this burden of, you know, what do we want to call it, institutional bias, institutional racism, this burden doesn't belong to us because we didn't create it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Nakia? Is this police officers in general addressing some of those community issues?
Right. I don't believe that of course, we didn't create it, but it is our burden. Look at us. All you do is look at us. Look how we're treated. So it is our, so now what we have to do is change the narrative. Stop allowing them to write the narrative, because if we say this burden isn't ours and we're going to leave it to y'all to change, you see what happened already. Because I believe that honestly, Black history got watered down. There's so many things that I should know that I don't know, that I didn't get from my great grandparents. It's been watered down. So I believe let's not let them change the narrative. Let's, instead of saying white privilege, how come we can't say I'm Black and I'm privileged and we're not taking it no more? Start speaking things as if it was. We have got to do something. Stop allowing our oppressors to write our story. So yes, as a law enforcement officer, it's as a Black law enforcement officer, especially if you're a good officer, right now, I couldn't even imagine the burden is on your shoulders. But you cannot say, well, we didn't create it, so it's not. No, write that narrative. Change that narrative, because in a minute, I feel like they're trying to force Black law enforcement officers out of the police departments. And then what is it going to look like?
Right. Yeah. And it just goes back to probably my first episode I ever done with, funny enough, last name was Jones too. I know there's no relationship, but but he said that that Black police officers do have a responsibility to the community, because the community is the one that got you there, and so that's a really good point. So Nakia, let's my other question for you is, because I played your video. You have no problem speaking out. You have no problem addressing it, calling it as it is. But my question to you is, what stopped other officers from doing that? Like, what stopped them from saying, you know what, I see wrong, I'm going to speak up? Like, what is it that stopped them from doing that?
There are a few reasons, and this was one that actually, after being away from law enforcement, I realized. Do you all understand that when you put Black officers in a community and all you see is violence against Blacks, violence this, but all you see is Blacks doing things wrong, we're arresting Blacks and all this, sometimes if you're not well grounded, you'll start thinking, I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them. So when you see white officers doing something that's not right, you can't relate, because you disassociated yourself from that person. You see what I'm saying? So that's why it's important to have those officers in the community. Send them to the school so they can interact with people. You can't have us in the community and all we see is bad things. So a lot of times it's like they switch something off inside their heads, so that when they do hear their white counterparts talking about this nasty community and how they acting, look how they're acting like thugs, it's almost like, okay, are you calling them a thug because they're Black? Oh yeah, I'm not one of them. So it's almost like that. The other thing is, retaliation is real. It's real, y'all. Some officers have been killed. Some officers lose everything. And I know for a long time I've been saying over and over again, Terry, if you would give me a second, I've been saying that Warrensville took everything from me. But it's so funny that I'm on Moses Speaks, and God told me, he said Warrensville didn't take anything from me. God said that season of my life was over, and because I was afraid to step out, because I had been saying I'm gonna leave the department, I'm gonna move to something bigger, because I was afraid, God said, it's your time now. Now you gotta remove it. And what happened is, I believe that I would have been so much further, but I continued to hold on to that pain. So now I'm taking that power back. Thank you, Warrensville. I know God orchestrated. He said anything the devil made for bad, God made it for good. And I'm ready to walk into this new door. And I have a big mission.
Yes, I gotta say, I can't wait to finish your book. I'm not a fast reader like I used to be. But I know that I said this before. I'm hoping that those people who want to have a good book for a book club, this would be an excellent book. And I'm not a fast reader, but I'm turning the pages because, well, sorry, more like I'm what you call it, I'm scrolling the pages, because everything is electronic these days. I'm scrolling the pages because I'm starting to see not just what you endured as a person in law enforcement, but also the pathway that got you there. Again, I'm not going to give away any of the book, because I think people should go buy it. They should read it themselves, right? But I was definitely touched by the story that you told about your grandmother, and the promise that she made her. I was really moved by all that stuff, and it sort of reminded me of some of my students that are first generational, and sort of the stories that they have as well. So I think it was a well put together book. And again, I'm not done with it yet, but based on what I read so far, absolutely wonderful. Um, so if you're out there, you're looking for a book club, definitely check it out. It's The Truth Divided. I want to put Truth Divided. I want to put the link to the Amazon order in the link in this chat in a few minutes. So, but my thing I want to give you the opportunity, Nakia, is thinking about the book when you were thinking about the chapters. And again, I was thinking about the chapters. How, because some of the hardest things for most people to do is say, okay, I want to write about my story, and people don't know where to start. Thinking about that, how did you come up with I guess, the outline of your chapters? Like when you were thinking about putting together the story, telling your story, how did you come up with the outline?
You know what? Honestly, Terry, I honestly, I just start writing, and then I would go back, and then I would have an aha moment. That's that's what you put, and then I would start writing, and then I would have an aha moment, because the second book, that's a baby compared to this. That's a baby.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that too. Actually,
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that too. So another thing I'm curious about is, one of the things I always say is, if you find a police officer who do speak out, who do the right thing, that the community, especially the Black community, should be supporting that person. And I want to know, what was the response from the community and from law enforcement? What was the response from those two bodies after that, after the book, after all of your posting, all that stuff? What was the response?
As far as the police department, of course, I had officers, especially officers from other states, were very supportive. They would, message me, and a lot of the messages I didn't get, a lot of them I just read this year. That's so funny. So to all of you all that read, and I think Carrio reached out to me. And
yes, she did.
I didn't get her message until this year, because we had so many messages. So I want to tell you all, thank you. As far as my department, it was I support some of the stuff you say, but then some of it, nah, not really. It was nobody that stood up and said, you are absolutely right. Everything you said was correct, and we know it. So it was that kind of. And then as far as the community, of course, the community that are us, we were supportive. And of course, some whites were too. But then, of course, I had a few that were, you ain't have no business. You weren't supposed to speak against the blue wall. I've had officers call me and say stuff like, you knew you weren't supposed to talk against them. Female Black officers say, you had no business saying nothing. That's what happened to you. And I'm looking at them saying, I pray to God that my child don't ever have to deal with it. Because what it tells me about your character is that if you saw one of your officers getting out of line, you wouldn't do Carrio's law. You wouldn't intervene. You would let it just happen.
Yes. That is one of the reasons why I think it's so impactful that folks like you and Carrio. I mean, I was just saying this a couple of days ago. Someone was asking me this question. I said, I talk about you a lot. I talk about Carrio a lot, Monica Blake, because you're the three that sort of, I guess, not just spoke up, but spoke out, right? But there are a good number of officers who have told me stories in confidence, right? And I always ask that question, what stops them from, bringing it to their supervisor, or what stops them from bringing it to, like a police organization. I see right here, brother Sean Kennedy's on, and he commented here. So Sean, and then Sean put it here, one of the organizations, which is Nablio, right? And he put here, Nablio supports Nakia. Matter of fact, that's how I got connected to you. Sean Kennedy messaged me, and he was like, you gotta talk to the sister, And my response was, I've been trying. But like you said, there's been a lot of people trying to reach out to you to either speak or do stuff. And You also was involved politically, I know as well. How did that go for your interacting with the presidency and also stuff in Atlanta?
Let me, Obama. If you saw the,
Oh, hold on, you broke up.
okay.
There you go. You're back.
Okay. When I met President Barack Obama, I was like a child. I was like, and for him to invite me to sit in a position to help try to bridge the gap, it was an honor. It was really, really an honor. I just hate that it happened on the end of his term, so he wasn't able to really put things in place. But Kamala,
Right.
girl, I'm here. I'm ready. I'm ready. Biden, I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm fair. I'm definitely not against law enforcement at all. You know what I'm saying? Just like I don't think that the community is always 100% right. I'm for right. Like Malcolm X said, I'm for right no matter who is for or against.
Now, let me tell you something, Nakia. I advertised that at the end of this episode, I'm going to show the Peace Corps God Loves Justice. And believe it or not, that is the quote that I use. MLK quote. And by the way, guys, no one saw it, neither Nakia. So that's a really important quote. Is right. So that's hilarious. Yeah, but I think it too, Nakai. You know, when you talk about your involvement with trying to bridge the gap, what do you think are some of the most crucial things that has to happen?
You know what? Honestly, you have got to go into every single police department. You got to start all over again. I'm being honest because to the point to where first of all, your leadership has to be impeccable. So now you got to start all the way from leadership and work your way down, because if the head ain't right, the body ain't right. Y'all all know it's the truth. If I'm a messed up person, how can the rest of my body be right? So you got to go to these mayors first, because the mayors are over the chiefs. The chiefs are over the captains. The captain. So you want to start there. Sit down with them, start talking to them, weeding out those things. See what I would test their integrity button. You have got to get citizen review boards in there. You've got to get the citizens involved in hiring your law enforcement officers. These are the people that are going to serve them. So they should have a right to have a say-so on who is hired. You know what I'm saying? Right. You've got to do proper training. You have got to get FOP that you got to disassemble that and start it all over again. So it's so many things, and you've got to, honestly, you have to bring back respect between the community and police. Trust is going to be a long time. You got to do the respect. Respect sometimes go a longer way than fear. Right now, you see Blacks and Latinos, they're afraid. And you push an animal up against a wall too long, they're going to come out fight. But with respect, if we respect one another, that can mean you don't have to like me, I don't have to like you. We got a mutual respect. You treat me the way I want to be treated, I treat you the way you want to be treated. That's how we're going to have to start. And you've got to get officers in the community that the people trust, so that when you do have, unfortunately, bad situations, they can sit down and the people know when they talk to them, they're being honest with them.
Yes. I've been saying that for so many years, Nakia, is that two problems I see. One is usually no one invites me into a situation unless it's a bad situation. I pray to the day that I get invited because we want to have a positive relationship with our community. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when something bad happens or something that was not just happens, be honest with your community, right? Be honest. No matter what the consequences may be, you have to be honest. Because if you're not honest, you just taking that gap and you just spread it further and further. So that's a really important point. Nakia, I want to throw some questions at you now. That's not from me. It's from the people who are watching online. I want to start with this one here from Leslie Lang. I'm not sure if you met her. She's also very active in the community. She's asking a question based on what you said. Is how can we get officers to examine themselves and other officers to hold themselves accountable? So, you mentioned that posting that video, you were hoping that officers would take time to examine themselves. So how would the officers start that process?
You know what, honestly, because, and she knows, being a law enforcement officer, it gives you a certain power. So if you're not balanced, you'll get pride. Before you know it, you're so prideful that even my video wouldn't touch you. not the way it should. What it does is it
Mhm.
vexes your spirit. So if that video vexed your spirit, that was supposed to be your cue to say, I need to examine myself. Why would I be upset about what she said? If I'm white, I'm not racist. Or if I'm a black officer, why am I offended? Am I offended because I've been watching things that I shouldn't be watching? It's almost like you're taking personal inventory of yourself. Even as a human being, every day you get up in the morning, you need to look in the mirror and say, what is it can I do? What can I do to change and make myself better for others? So when you put on that law enforcement, that uniform, you're supposed to be a hero. I mean, I'm serious. Like officers, I'm supposed to be able to run to you. I shouldn't be sitting in my car like, oh my God, I hope I ain't going too fast. They're going to pull me over. And my mindset is not, I'm scared to get a ticket. I'm scared, am I going to live through this? You know?
Right.
So you are a hero. So every day you get up and you look in that mirror, you say, when I go out here, I'm going to treat people the way I would want them to treat my son. I'm going to treat people the way I want them to treat my daughter. I'm going to treat people the way I want them to treat my mother, my father, or myself. And you have to speak that into yourself. You know what I'm saying? It comes from integrity. When you have integrity, you're going to examine yourself anyway, especially like when I hear things that irritate me, I immediately, at first I get irritated, but then I'm saying, why is it irritating? So I had to go back and examine myself too. And I've been guilty of seeing things happen at one point or another and not saying nothing because I didn't know what to do. And if most officers be honest, it's the truth. We be like, wait a minute. But now after a while, now what you ain't going to do is continue to do it, not in front of me. The first time you might catch me off guard and I'll be like, oh my God, like I don't know what to do. The second time we got a problem.
Right. So, thank you very much. Now we got another question here, and I think I understand this question. It says, it's from Nicole. It says, how do you feel about co-responder models? I think a lot of the and I think Nicole's talking about like when you have a situation like mental health, what have you not, and you have someone who's a mental health professional as well as law enforcement respond. So I guess your general feelings on the co-responder model. And Nicole, if I got that wrong, please let me know in the chat box. I'm assuming that's what you mean.
Honestly, Nicole, when you're dealing with mental health situations, it can be very dangerous, number one. So yes, I do agree that there should be professionals that are able to mentally assess things. But if you even know, even when you sit down in a doctor's office, it don't come right away. And a lot of times, some of those people that are going through a mental health issue or mental health breakdown, they're so amped up when they go to the hospital, the first thing they do is shoot them with, I can't remember the name of the stuff, but it knocks them out. So my fear is, if you have law enforcement officers, a person, a mental health professional going with law enforcement, it goes bad. Now that officer is not only trying to preserve his life, he's got to take care of that person as well. And it can cause so many problems. So if they're going to do that, they're really going to have to fine tooth comb it. I mean, I'm really serious because I've been in a situation where we've dealt with a mental health young man that was just out of his mind, and it was rough. It was scary for me, and I'm an officer. You know what I'm saying? We had a mental health a professional in Ohio. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Her client walked in and killed her right there. So I don't know. It's almost like, should you have the mental health professionals at the department or meet you at the hospital? You know what I'm saying? I just would hate for them to be put in harm's way.
Yeah, and that's just really. And I was right on the talker here. She was talking about stuff like Leads and Cahoots, some of those programs. But one of the things too that I want to get your point on too is diversion. Police now, there are some great organizations out there that does police diversion, right? So they're spending their time keeping people out of jail, right? They're trying to make sure they make the right moves. And I think you talked about that a little bit too. What do you think about the power of police diversion programs?
I think it's phenomenal. I work for the Survivor Outreach Center, and that's what we do. We give our children a second chance. And when I say our children, I'm talking about whites, black, Hispanic. It doesn't make a difference. We don't care about that because we all know we were all young once. And we all know that we probably all done something that we probably could have went to jail for. I'm just saying, we try to pretend. I just think that that's that reality check. They get that, oh my God, that fear. And hopefully they are afraid, oh my God, I'm going to have a record. I might go to jail. But now you get that second chance. If you go through this, you won't have a record. You got a chance to get a clean slate. I really totally 100% agree with diversion. Of course, depending upon the crime. I wish that they would bring back the Scared Straight program. And I talk about it all the time. You know that the reason why they stopped the Scared Straight program because many of our children were benefiting from it.
I saw the video of you presenting to a group of high schoolers, and I got chills because I think that is something that we should probably go back to, is having police, and not just police, but I guess police who want to be there, right? Because you have some police officers who may want to do a program like that, but don't have the heart for it or the spirit, and that does show with young people. Here's a really good question, and first of all, I want to let you know that your assistant Jocelyn is shouting out to you. She says, "Hello, y'all." So she's watching. Hi, Jocelyn. How are you? So there's a really good question here, and if I miss your question, I apologize. But here's one that sort of caught my eye from Felicia. She says, "Hello, Nakia. What is something you learned while about yourself while writing your book?" So sort of that self-reflective question. What did you learn about yourself as you were writing your book?
Felicia, you know what I learned? I learned that I was in a lot of pain. I learned that I was hurting. I learned that I started to fall into a depression. Writing that book really made me reflect on me. I thought that I was doing it for the community and for you all to have something that you could look at and say, look, this is what a real good police officer's heart looked like. And then I put something there for a police officer to say, listen, this is how Black mothers feel. And then I even put a letter in there that I put in there from a good Black young male. You know what I'm saying? To kind of show them that we are not all, what is wrong? So it really showed me, number one, honestly showed me who I was. And it actually confirmed to me that I was a good officer. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're going through that battle of speaking out and people are coming at you, it can tend to beat you down. I'm sorry.
No. This is the new world that we live in, right? We got kids, we got pets. It's part of our life right now.
Yes. Yes, I like to now.
Yeah, that's I think that's a really good question. Is and definitely a good response too. Your book again. I want to encourage people to read it. I want, if someone could put the link in the comment section for the book, that would be great. I will put the link to Nakia is a speaker with Societies for Justice. So if you want to bring her to your community, I'm putting the link in the for her booking. And also, if you're doing a book club and you want to invite her to be a guest, by all means, definitely reach out. Indeed. So there's a couple of questions pouring in here, by the way. I really can't keep track, so I do apologize for anyone. Here's one, and let's make this the last one. So so someone said they're ready for your second book. I think we all are.
Amazing. You know what, Terry? I can promise you, when you read that book, you're gonna heal. You're gonna see my spiritual journey through this. You're gonna really get to see where I couldn't touch on in the other book because I was still a police officer. I touched on it in this book.
Yes, and so someone said we love the Kai in Cleveland and at JFK High School.
Let me tell you, Terry, I want to shout them out. Do you know the students actually went to their advisors and their principals and asked them, I want her to be our keynote speaker for the school. And I actually was their keynote speaker for their graduation. And one young man in particular, when I spoke, I got on them about calling themselves niggas. Before I left, they was calling each other kings. They pulled their pants up. The one young man, he said, I'm not going to graduate, Miss Jones. I said, yes, you are. I said, because I'm going
Mm.
to speak it in your life. This young man presented me with roses. He walked across the stage.
Oh my
I
God.
love JFK. Mwah. I love them.
You know, there are so many great inspirational stories that comes out of these conversations, and that's a wonderful one. All right, let's give you one last question before we wrap up, Nakia. And again, I'm sorry, guys, but I do look at the time, so I know people are asking to go a little bit longer, but that won't be happening today. But here's a good one, I think. From Rhonda. It says, how can we combine police officers and black males to communicate better and not fear? And so I think that's a perfect last question to wrap up with. So Nakia, I'm gonna give you the spotlight to answer that question.
Honestly, Rhonda, what I think you have to do is you have to get officers to come into the community and mentor these young black men. And you have to have you have to form a relationship with them. Like maybe you can do something like hang out with the community day and you get the young black men and the black and white, because if you want to work in our community, daggone, you got to interact with us too, where y'all go out bowling, get to know one another on a more personal level. They're going to have to build that respect. And I'm not trying to be funny. I understand they're saying that the community has to do it. No, law enforcement should be doing it because that's our job. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve and protect, not just protect. So I believe if you start doing those things, having officers come into the community, come off duty, come in your jeans stuff, have a cookout, get to really know these young males. Let them know I'm really here for you. Sit down with them, tell them something personal about yourself. Let them know I wasn't always where I am. Because they're going to read you. These young people's discernment is on point. So if you come in there with something not right, they're going to read it. You've got to come down to their level and say, listen, I was there. I did this. And the ones that are doing well, you have to encourage them. Go to their graduations. Go to their games. I used to go to the kids' games in Warrensville. Go watch them play basketball. Go see them in plays, because then the community knows you love them and you become part of the community. And let me tell you something. When the community knows you have their back, they'll stand for you. If those young males know that you're a good officer, they will have your back through thick and thin. Y'all better hear me. So that's what you have to. You got to put more role models. And to me, law enforcement officers should be role models. Period. If you can't be a mentor, you shouldn't have that uniform
Mm, that is words to live by. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right. So, Nakia, a couple of things. One, our special guest behind it that's still backstage. She wants to ask you some questions, but behind, not live. So if you could stay on for about an extra minute or two to talk to our friend backstage. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I mean, this was a really impactful conversation. Nakia, we didn't even touch any. I mean, we didn't touch on a lot of things. I think I know. I mean, even as far as I read in your book, I think you could probably fill up 3 episodes alone or more.
on.
So I do want to encourage people to read the book, get the book. Thank you, my brother Sean Kennedy, for posting the link in the chat. And I think Sean posted it on Facebook and Jocelyn posted it on the YouTube channel. So please get that book indeed. And again, if you're looking for a speaker or you're looking for someone to facilitate that book, Nakia is ready and able. Um, so Nakia, please stay on to have us more chat with our dear friend backstage.
Yes.
And I want to get ahead and close this out. So Nakia, thank you so much. I can't wait for us to do some great things together. And I know that we will. So everybody, can you please show some virtual love for Nakia? And I'm going to get ahead and close this out. Thank you, Nakia.
Yes.
All right, so thank you all for watching and tuning in. I think before I go, I want to make sure that I keep my promise. So before this year ended, I asked one of our members to send me some information about justice, because I've tried to get not only Christians but Muslims and people from the Jewish faith to get together to answer this one question: is what is your responsibility and seeking justice. So one of our members sent me a whole bunch of scriptures that I absolutely loved. And again, Strategy for Justice is not a religious organization, but we're going to challenge anyone with faith to find justice. So this person sent me some scriptures, and what I've done is I wrote a short, quick piece about God loves justice. So to take us out, please enjoy God loves justice. It is upon us all to know justice, to seek justice, and like God, to love justice. It is not merely a word to be pledged, but a building foundation for impartiality. We cannot call upon God in our times of need, pray to our God in times of spiritual rejuvenation, yet ignore the need for justice in times of inequity. We, like God, must love justice. If we find that justice is missing, we must seek it and demand that it take its rightful place in our mind, in our heart, and in our soul. We must not view justice from our singular lens, but seek it through the eyes of the burdened and the demoralized. We should hold justice to the highest priority. After all, those who love justice will see this as the only way to live. We must all stand for justice no matter what. Malcolm X once said, "I'm for justice, no matter who it is for or against." We must continue to strategize and mobilize for justice's sake. Let us be for justice, because we, like God, must love justice.